Hello and welcome to Into the Woods with Holly Wharton. This podcast has evolved over the 5+ years since it first launched. From now on, I'm going to be talking about deepening your connection with yourself, taking inspired action, and really trusting yourself and your intuition. And also mindset, of course, but mindset of all kinds, not just business mindset. I think. Things are changing for me, as you may have noticed if you've been following me online or listening to this podcast, so anything goes here. I hope you stay along for the ride. Thank you so much for joining us today, and now let's get into this week's episode. Hello and welcome to the Into the Woods podcast, episode 294. This is your host, Holly Wharton, and I'm back with another episode with the fabulous Joe Casey. Today we're going to talk about the philosophy of no pain, no gain, and how it applies to healing and personal development. Is it necessary? Is this an important part of healing? Are there times when we need to step aside from the more gentle types of healing and therapy and turn to something a bit more intense? Is this kind of healing right for everyone? And how do you know if it's right for you? In this episode, we explore the world of more intense therapies based on some recent personal experience, which you may be aware of if you listen to my previous episode. So, what are you going to learn today? We talk about how the no pain, no gain philosophy applies to healing and personal development. And we ask the question, does it apply? Is this a valid way of approaching healing and personal development? We talk about why we sometimes need to look at the dark stuff, but yet not wallow in it, and how it's really such a delicate balance of looking at the stuff but not dwelling on it. We discuss how these types of more intense therapies can actually help us to expand our comfort zone in other areas of our lives. We also talk about why it's so important to feel safe and supported when working with the more intense therapies, and in any kind of therapy, really, but even more so in this type of work. And we ask the question, is there real value in these more intense healing experiences? So, tune into this episode and see what you think. See if you are drawn to experiencing these kinds of things for yourself, and is this something you would like to give a try? I share links in the show notes of the place I went for the thing that I did, and you'll hear more about that in a bit. As always, I welcome your questions. Feel free to drop me a line at holly@hollywharton.com, and I will answer any questions you have. Before I hand you over to the episode, I would like to extend an invitation for you to join me on Patreon. If you head over to patreon.com/Holly Wharton, you can join me there. Membership starts at just $1 a month, and you get exclusive access to content and done-for-you healing and mindset work that I don't share anywhere else, including a monthly Q&A. So, I would love to see you there. It's patreon.com/Holly Wharton. And now, on to the episode.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Holly.
How are you doing?
I'm good. My dog Lucy, who normally makes a guest appearance on, at least in barking form, on most of my podcast episodes, had her lady up yesterday. So is feeling very sorry for herself and is curled under my desk at my feet. So you may hear the odd kind of doggy whimper. I feel so bad for her. So other than that, that was all a bit stressful yesterday. But other than that, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Very much looking forward to our topic today.
Yeah, I am. I'm intrigued. So you came up with this topic. We've not discussed anything about it so far because we thought we'd save it all for the recorded bit. So so what's on your mind?
So I've been thinking about the whole no pain, no gain concept. And does this apply to healing? Does it apply to personal development? Is it necessary? And what does that even look like, or what does it mean? And this kind of came up based on a conversation that I had with a friend a few weeks back, because I'd done this Cambo frog medicine ceremony thing, which...
Okay, hold the phone. You're going to have to explain what that is, because it sounds amazing.
I had never heard of it until I got this text from a friend just before Christmas saying, hey, Merry Christmas. I'm running a combo ceremony in February, I think it was. Yeah, it was last month in February. And do you want to come? And I was like, I don't know what that is. So I went and I Googled it and I thought, well, give it a try. So what Kambo is it's called frog medicine because it comes from the secretions of this South American frog. I think it's native to Brazil. And under its arms, it secretes this stuff. And what they do when you have the ceremony is you drink a lot of water, like 2 liters in 10 minutes. Because later that water is going to come out. The person who's holding the ceremony burns holes in your arm or some other parts of your body with a stick of incense. They scrape the skin off the holes and then they put the frog medicine on your arm. They kind of mix it with this resin first so that it forms kind of dots. And that's how the medicine is absorbed into your body through this wound on your skin.
That sounds kind of horrific. They're going to burn it. How big are these holes? I'm imagining like flaming torch.
They're just like little dots, like an incense.
Okay, yeah.
That's actually the easy part because then you start purging all the water that you just drank. Yes. So then you spend the next 20 or 30 minutes bringing up the water into a bucket. Everyone has their own bucket. And you're in a room full of 9 other people who are either have done the same thing or they're waiting to do the same thing. And they kind of did 2 people at a time. And so it's this whole room of people who've either just been sick or about to be sick or are being sick. So it's a weird, I don't know. I had not done that kind of healing process before. And at the time that I was doing it, all I could think was, why did I sign up for this? I am never doing this again. Ever again. Why am I doing this? But then after it was over, and we were all kind of having our little light dinner at the end of the day, we were all talking about it. We were saying, well, would you do it again? Would you do it again? And some people were like, oh, I don't know. And a lot of us were like, I think so. And I think I will do it again. There's another ceremony coming up in June, and I think I'm going to do it. But the fact that it was so difficult as I was going through it made me wonder, like, most of the healing techniques that I use are very gentle, very soft, very deep and very profound and get great results, but they're very gentle. They're not vomiting into a bucket. So that kind of brought up the conversation that I had with a friend, which is like, is this kind of healing necessary? Like, do we need to make this a part of our healing? Or can we just do the softer stuff? Like, what? Thoughts?
So, okay. So,
any thoughts?
I don't know. So I don't know if it's the introvert in me or just the slightly uptight person. The thought of vomiting in front of other people and being that vulnerable in itself is. But tell me, what was the outcome of it? What kind of healing effects did you experience?
Obviously, you set your intention. And so let me rewind and say that I did this at a healing center with people that I mostly knew. So I did know the person who was facilitating the ceremony, but I did know the woman who was hosting the ceremony. I knew a lot of people there. So it was a very safe environment, and it was a very just loving and caring environment. And even the guy who was facilitating the ceremony said that he had never had such a beautiful ceremony. And he thinks it was because a lot of us knew each other, and it was just a very different kind of super supportive environment. So I was really concerned about being sick in front of a room full of people, but as I was going through it, all I could think, like, nothing existed outside of my bucket. It was like I knew stuff was going on, but it wasn't my reality. So what was the question you asked?
I said, what was the kind of the healing that you achieved?
Right. So at the beginning of the ceremony, we all got to go around and state our intentions. And my intentions were kind of healing the last remnants of my relationship with my ex and my ex-business partner, and kind of cutting those ties, cutting those cords, which I've done a million times before. And I've done like 10 years of healing with this relationship, and there's still stuff. So my intention was to kind of dredge to the bottom of that, get rid of the stuff that was still there, and really let go of it. And I've been in the process of kind of signing a legal agreement with this person for the last several months that we've been negotiating back and forth. I finally signed this contract in December, and I've been waiting for the other person to sign ever since. The day after the Kambo ceremony, I got an email saying that it had been signed. So that was huge for me. And that was kind of the thing that's said to me, okay, something happened here, because I've been waiting for months on this. It's not just a coincidence. Yeah, so that was kind of what made me think there's something here, because it's very subtle, because it's not like a hallucinogenic. It's not like ayahuasca where you are purging, but then you're experiencing an alternate state of consciousness. You just purge and then you kind of snuggle back into your blankets and go to sleep for a while because you're exhausted. But you're not experiencing any kind of alternate state of consciousness. So that was also really strange to me, because it was like I went through this whole thing and then I just kind of rested. Because apparently it's, spirit medicine, it works on the spiritual level. So there's not much happening except for the being sick into a bucket. There's not much happening at kind of the conscious level. So it's very different from any kind of healing stuff that I've done before.
It sounds absolutely fascinating. I would love to know kind of more about the kind of the history and the background and how it's traditionally used and things. But so I guess it depends on my view on these things. And I've never done anything remotely as it sounds like extreme as that. But what I do know is that there is a kind of a school of thought and a tendency within personal development, within spiritual healing, that we're not going to look at the dark stuff. I mean, I don't think that's, you and I are very much on the same page with this. It's not that I believe we should really deep down necessarily and wallow in the dark stuff, but I think we have to acknowledge it. So that, like, I experienced anxiety and depression, and just trying to ignore it and fight it and turn away from that and resist those kind of quote unquote dark, intense feelings when they're coming on actually just prolongs it. So there is some, I can definitely recognize the need that can most definitely be healing when we into the darker spaces, the more painful, to go back to your kind of original question, more painful places. I also think of things like body healing. You think of things like physical therapy. If you go to a physiotherapist or something, I used to joke that you have to have a certain strain of sadism in you to be a physiotherapist, because very often, and sometimes even if you have like a deep, intense massage, I don't enjoy a light touch massage. I like somebody to really get in there and make me kind of wince and go, I don't want to feel bruised afterwards, because that for me seems to be the thing that my body responds to in that context. So I think there can be most definitely some healing properties within the light and the dark. I don't think it's an either or, and I think we limit ourselves if we kind of are very much on the no, I just want it to be light and nurturing. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a huge part of me. I do want everything to be light and nurturing. I don't want pain. I don't want to attract pain. I'm not attracted to the pain in the dark, but you can't avoid that. And so I'm intrigued with your experience of this ceremony, because it just the idea that, you purge everything and then that's what kind of facilitates the healing or triggers the healing.
Because you're letting go.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can't not let go, because the second those dots go on your arm, it takes about a minute for you to start purging, because it just instantly hits your system and you get sick to your stomach. So it's quite, you can't not purge.
That's intense. That's
And another thing that you kind of brought up when you said, as an introvert, you don't necessarily want to be getting sick into a bucket in a room full of people. I also think there's great value in doing things that take me outside of my comfort zone. Because I think like this ripple effect, that anytime I do anything that takes me out of my comfort zone, it helps stretch my comfort zone in other ways as well. And so for me, this was a huge stretch, because I'm very fearful of pain. I'm terrified of other people seeing me be sick. And I had a lot of fears, because also it wasn't just the combo ceremony. In the beginning, we did these eye drops. I forget what they're called. It's this other South American eye drop thing that's supposed to help deepen the healing of the combo, but they're incredibly painful. It's the most pain I've ever experienced in my life.
What?
Yeah. So the guy's going around, giving people eye drops, and like I started, like I couldn't handle the pain. I started kicking, and this woman had to come and like hold down my legs so I didn't hurt anyone. Like, it was crazy. And then at the end of it, to help ground us as we were coming back from, kind of waking up after our naps, they did this snuff called rapé, and they take this powder and they blow it into your nose through this twig. Oh my God, the pain. It was like this nerve that just went, and like, oh my God, it was so painful. So it was like there were 3 kind of stages of pain this day. And I'm very fearful of pain. So the fact that I kind of took that risk and did that because everyone else was doing it and it was part of the ceremony. I mean, I could have said no, but I think the fact that I took that risk also was helpful to me, because it took me outside my comfort zone.
Yeah. So I have
It was a lovely day. So wonderful.
So, obviously, I've never deliberately... That's not true, actually. Okay, so I have to be really careful the way that I'm kind of describing this, because I'm not in any way, shape or form likening spiritual rituals and things like the one that you went through to self-harm.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I do know, as somebody who has self-harmed in the past when I was in a much darker place and much younger, that there is a physiological thing that happens on the other side of the pain. That your body releases, effectively go into shock, basically. It's your body kind of, oh my God, all hands to the pump. So, certain chemicals are released in the brain. There's oxytocin, your body's natural painkillers get released. And that can have a very relaxing and analgesic effect, which is one of the reasons why self-harm can become a little bit addictive. In a similar way, say having a tattoo for some people can be a little bit addictive. I'm somebody who really enjoys getting a tattoo.
See, I'm terrified of those.
It doesn't feel especially painful to me. It's like a cumulative pain. And by the time kind of the pain point kicks in, that I'm lucky to have a good kind of endorphin release. So the last tattoo that I have is the largish one that I have on my forearm. And it took about 3 hours to do. And although I have to say about 45 minutes of that was just the tattoo artist getting the lettering straight on there. So it wasn't actually constantly for 3 hours. So they put like the little transfer off and them off and washed it off and kind of, so there was a bit of a break in between. But I was there with two other people who were both men, and they were wincing. They were going, oh God, they were really vocalizing it.
Well, men have a lower pain tolerance than women, because women are designed for childbirth.
Yeah, and I was there kind of going, this is fine. I'm having a bit of a kind of, I am Wonder Woman right now. But so there is a physiological thing that kind of goes on. So there's that, but I'm also fascinated about the level of spiritual healing that happened. Can you articulate? Do you have words and language for what went on, or was it?
I feel like I don't, because this was the first kind of healing that I had done of this type. And it happened at a level that I wasn't conscious of. Only conscious of purging and the relaxing afterwards. Stuff was going on at other levels, but I don't have the words for it because I'm not really conscious of what happened there. I was very glad that the facilitators explained at the beginning that it was spirit medicine. And so, we're not going to be tripping or whatever, because that kind of helped me to understand the experience, because I was thinking, well, what the heck happened? I have no clue. And I feel like I need to say all of the stuff that we did was totally legal. Legal here in the UK and legal in many countries around the world. I just don't want anyone to think that I'm like doing drugs. The frog medicine is perfectly legal. Interestingly, the combo is legal in most parts of the world, except for the country, Brazil, where the frog is native.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I wonder why that is.
I don't know. I mean, obviously it's an indigenous healing thing, so it's indigenous people who are doing this, but yeah, I don't know. And it's strange also because, I mean, obviously it's the kind of thing that you need to do with the facilitator. You can buy the dots online, but there's no way in hell I would buy them online and do them myself at home, because one of the things was it was a very supportive experience. We were doing this 2x2. There were two facilitators, one with each person. I felt very, very supportive. I mean, the guy was right there with me every step of the way until I told him I was done, and then he moved on to the next person. But I felt very supportive in this. And that's also something that I didn't expect, and I was very, very pleasantly surprised to experience.
I think that must be one of the kind of essential parts of something like this. We know from neuroscience, a lot of the work that I did some work, particularly last year, I did a course around kind of nervous system healing and the polyvagal nervous system and things like that. And that if you read things like, what's the one about the tiger? Oh my God, let me find the name of it. When we talk about kind of healing the nervous system and the kind of physiological, biological responses to, so Peter Levine's work on healing trauma talks about how we are hardwired for that connection with other humans. And so there's a measurable effect on our nervous system of when we're in the company of other people compared to when we are on our own. So if we experience trauma with other people, with somebody who is, even just who's able to place a hand on you, who's able to, in a supportive way, has a very different impact on our long-term nervous system effects than if you were experiencing something like that on your own.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of, let me find the name of the book. It's called Changing Your Mind. I'm just going.
Oh, yes, Michael Pollan.
Yes,
How to Change Your Mind.
Yes, Michael Pollan's book around all the research that's been done into the use of psychedelics effectively, and how they were, up until the 1960s, when they were obviously being used a lot recreationally, they were the primary kind of research route for treating psychological conditions like depression, like anxiety and things like that. And then all of the research stopped because the research was banned. But there's still a huge amount of data, and there are now studies being done that show that used correctly, used well, there can be huge healing effects through using psychedelics. But one of the things that I remember he shares his experience of going on a guided trip, basically. So there are people that you can hire, and they have to be really careful because it is still illegal, particularly where he was doing it in the United States, to administer psychoactive drugs, psychotropic drugs. But he is guided through this very lovely experience of having a trip, and he found it incredibly healing. But of course, I think one of the big differentiators there is the fact that he had somebody there who was trained. I think it was a psychotherapist, or certainly a trained counsellor who was doing it, who emphasised and made sure that it was a very safe environment, that him feeling secure and safe was paramount to the experience. And that sounds like certainly one of the very important elements from this frog experience, this frog, what's it called, frog medicine experience that you went through. Yeah.
And I think that's a really good point, because I think if we are going to do some of these more intense types of healing, or the no pain, no gain kind of thing, I think it is very, very important to be doing it in a very safe and supportive environment where you know that you are being held, and you know that you're doing this with experienced facilitators who know how to work with people in this way.
The ethics and I suppose, having that kind of ecology check at the heart of it all the time. Yeah. Because we all know, we've all come across people who are in the quote unquote healing professions or use a healing modality, and there is just a weird and unhealthy power thing going on.
Yes, absolutely. And I think I've been very grateful to have trained in techniques, particularly Psych K, where they spend a lot of time really making sure that facilitators come from the right place when they're working with people, to the point where when you're doing the muscle testing with your client, you're either both standing or you're both sitting, but you're always both at the same level. You're never standing while the client is sitting, because that kind of unconsciously projects, like, I am the leader, I am the expert, and I am treating you. And they're very, very careful with the language. You work with someone, you don't do the work to them or on them. So yeah, I think that's also very, very important.
Yeah, I'm really lucky as well. I mean, obviously we've had kind of similar training backgrounds in those types of things with my NLP and my hypnotherapy. Yep. It was very much the same thing. It was, you sit next to people rather than across from them if possible. If you're in the same room, it's a bit different if you're working virtually, because, unless we all sit sideways on our computers, don't quite work. It's very much about that ecology check. It's having a kind of a psychoeducational experience so that people are very aware of what's going on and why we do certain things, and they're very much in control, and they have agency within the process rather than it being a done to. So it's one of those things, again, it's like, I think if your intentions are good and you have full kind of ethical check and you do an ecology check, then it's full permission based and it's consent based. Then you can, I suppose, guide people, lead people through certain more intense experiences in a healthy way. I think there are sometimes even the so-called lighter touch, non-invasive, not that we stick pins in people necessarily, although in this case, yes, they did. They burnt you with a flaming torch, in my mind. There are times where I think even if you're doing quite a light touch, non-invasive modality, but the power imbalance is messed up, but that ecology check isn't there, then that is still going to be a negative and an unhealthy experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of raised the question for me, like moving forward, how am I going to incorporate some of these more intense type of therapies into the stuff that I currently do? You know, am I going to have a mix? Like, how's the balance going to be? Like, how am I going to move forward?
Do you mean to kind of do for yourself or
with
to
myself,
work with clients with yourself?
No, I don't want to facilitate this
I was going to say, come around to mine. We'll set up some stuff in the shed at home. And
I'm not up for that. That's a huge level of responsibility. I think that I'm absolutely not up for it. And I have great respect for people who can hold that kind of space, because holding space for people doing the kind of mindset work that I do is one thing, but holding space for people who are literally being sick into a bucket, that's another. They were so lovely. Like, some people were purging in other ways, and so they, have to go to the toilet, and the facilitator would go and sit outside the bathroom door and sing to them like medicine songs. It was just so lovely.
I just have an image of me stuck in a bathroom with somebody singing outside the door. I would just be like, just leave me alone. But obviously that is, I have all kinds. I think I have a sitcom brain on me today. But so I'm very curious then as to what brought you to the conclusion that this is something that you think you would like to do again.
Well, it was because I had such a very clear sign the day after doing the ceremony, and I do feel that was not coincidental. It might have been, but my gut says no. So I feel like I got results from it. And I'm very curious to see what it will be like the second time, because now I know what to expect. Obviously, every ceremony is going to be different, but I know what to expect with the eye drops, and I know what to expect with the cambo, and I know what to expect with the snuff. Whereas I'm also very fearful of going into experiences for the first time, not knowing what it is. So I think it's going to be a very different experience the second time around. I don't know if this is something I'm going to keep doing on a regular basis, but it's definitely something that I'm going to try again. It takes me out of my comfort zone. It is a bit scary to me, even though I have experienced it. So I definitely think it's something that I want to try at least once more. Myself getting addicted to it and doing it every month.
So I was just running that
regular basis.
That question in my head. So is this something I'd like to do? And I went, no. I think going outside my comfort zone might be something like, maybe try some hot yoga. Or
But see, and I think that's really important. Like, we've got to do the stuff that works for us, or the stuff that feels right for us. Like, the second I started reading about this, I knew I had to try it, even though I was also simultaneously terrified of it.
So how did you know it was something that you had to try again? Was it just like a gut
it was a gut feeling. I just started reading about it, and I thought, this is something I want to experience. Like, I want to try it. It scares me, but I want to try it.
That's a bit like some people think, I just want to jump out of a plane. And I'm like, nope.
Oh, I have too. I've always wanted to, and I never have.
Oh my goodness.
I really want to, and circumstances haven't made it a priority for me, but I would love to.
Oh, okay. Well, watch this space then. I will wave you off, and I'll be there with a blanket and a cup of tea on the ground.
Well, I once did bungee jumping in Central America when I was teaching English there in Costa Rica, and that was terrifying. I did it because I wanted to do it, and I went with a bunch of friends. We were all like starving student English teachers, and so we like haggled the price down. And later I was thinking, why did we do that? Like, this is like, what if we died?
You haggled. I would say, as a rule in life, if somebody has literally your life in their hands, don't haggle with them.
No, I know. That's what common sense says. And common sense kicked in like the day later. But that was another thing that's like terrifying, life-threatening, totally took me outside my comfort zone. And I'm really grateful for that experience, because it's really scary to jump off a bridge, even though you're tied to the bridge in some way. It's just not natural.
No, it's definitely not. I'm wondering if my experience as somebody who just kind of live with an anxiety disorder on a regular basis, it kind of alters my view, or clearly it kind of skews my view on this, because there are just some normal day-to-day things in life which terrify me. I just don't have that bit of my brain that kind of says, oh yeah, go jump off a plane, that'll be scary and exhilarating. It's like, why would I want to? So my tax return to me is like jumping out of a plane. It's that level of
someone to do it for me.
not even get the stuff ready to do it is
Yeah.
like that for me. I find this whole subject a really interesting one. And I think kind of an important one as well, because I do think that there is sometimes a desire to spiritually bypass. This is something that I was talking with a couple of clients with this week around. I've got one client who was talking about, being in a particular energy healing community, and she was having a bit of a tough day, and the kind of leader of the group was just saying, just release it. And she was going, I'm trying.
Yeah.
It's not that easy to and it kind of reminds me a little bit of the kind of, just pull your socks up and get on with it, just push through it type thing. And I think that there are some things that, yes, it is useful to do, just kind of grit your teeth and to go through it, but there's also other times when, no, actually it's important to really stare this down and look it in the face and really look at my fear, look at the dark places, look at the things I am trying to run away from. Because I think if we don't, we miss a lot of learning opportunities, but we also have no chance of that thing moving through us because we're kind of blocking the energy of it.
It's like you've got to kind of accept it and then let it go.
Yeah.
Not cling to it.
Yeah.
But you got to look at the dark stuff, I think. I mean, not dwell on it. Again, there's like such a delicate balance.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like really don't like traditional talk therapy because I feel like that you dredge up the crap and then you like dwell on the crap and you really look at the crap and you analyze the crap and it's just like hours of crap. I think you need to look at it. I think you need to bring it to the surface, but then you need to release it. And again, that's not always easy. Like I said, I've spent 10 years healing from this relationship, but I do think you can't bypass the dark stuff. You've got to acknowledge it in some way and then work on healing it.
Yeah, and also acknowledge the fact that we're never one and done as human beings. I did a podcast that was released last week. It's a solo episode and I talk about perfectionism. And I know this is something you and I have talked about endless times. It's like the thing that you've worked on so often and you've kind of, I've done the healing, I've done these different modalities and you think, okay, I'm done with that, I'm groovy with that, that is all kind of great. And then it comes back from a different angle and you're like, this again? I'm doing this again? But it's like it's another growth opportunity. But I think these are the patterns that we have and the healing journey that we're on personally. Or they're what gives us the insights and the empathy and gives us the right to be able to work with others around similar things. We become kind of pathfinders and fellow travellers with it. Not necessarily gurus who have all of the answers and never have dark thoughts ever again, because you're not human if that happens. I know that I'm never in a good place. I'm never being my best self when I'm trying to push away a load of stuff I'm trying not to look at and trying not to acknowledge.
Oh, yeah. Because you end up pushing down other stuff in the process.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like you can just isolate that one thing and say, we're going to compartmentalize that and it's going to go away. Yeah. It drags other stuff down into the darkness.
So I'm wondering if this ritual that you went through and there's something about the purging of stuff that, if it's spirit medicine, this is stuff that maybe on the kind of conscious level you can't see, you don't know it's there, but it's still kind of dragging you down, still blocking that energy. And there's something in that purging and that spirit healing that's gone on that has allowed you to release it. And releasing things isn't always neat and happy and pretty. Sometimes it's puking into a bucket.
Yeah, it is. And interestingly, in the weeks since that ceremony, I feel like I have a new sense of clarity. I've been super focused. I've been working on my projects. I finished my manuscript for my next book and I sent it on to the editor. Everything's been it's been really easy for me to like focus and get shit done. And I don't know if that's because I was able to release stuff that was holding me back, but I feel like I'm so much more on track and flowing through life. Like I've already got my next 2 books planned. Like, I don't know. It's like everything is on track and going really, really well. In other ways, not just specifically the thing that was my intention for that ceremony. I feel like maybe letting go, both spiritually and physically and mentally and emotionally, has helped me kind of, I don't know, I'm going to say it again, get back on track and really stay focused on the path that I know I want to be on.
And I guess as well, from that experience that you had, like you said, it was like those dots were placed on your arm within a minute. It's like you then have no control over it. It's a bit like, I don't know, sneezing or something, or going to the toilet or childbirth or something, once it kind of starts, it's like you have no conscious control over it. You can't stop it. You can't in the middle of it say, no, change my mind, thank you. With it, you have to kind of, I was going to say you have to commit to it, but you don't. You don't have to consciously do anything. It's kind of like body and soul are doing this stuff. And so your conscious brain can also be a good, I think sometimes those experiences can be a kind of good reminder that conscious bit of our brain, our consciousness, our ego, or, you know, whatever we want to call it, it's not necessarily in control nearly as much as it thinks it is, nor is it needed for some of the kind of deep, profound stuff that's going on. You know, we don't need to consciously think about breathing.
Exactly.
So maybe I know with some of the modalities that I've used, you know, in hypnotherapy, for example, or IEMT, which is integral eye movement therapy, you can't really explain what's happening on a conscious level because it's not working on a conscious level.
Yeah.
There's something that's quite kind of good for the ego with that. I mean, kind of good for the ego as in not, the ego doesn't necessarily like it, but it's good for kind of keeping the ego in check.
Yeah.
Because you realise, oh, there's so much kind of power and potential and so much stuff going on that doesn't require me to sit here thinking myself through it.
Yes. And analysing.
Yes. Yeah.
I've always been attracted to therapies that are like that. Like, let's not analyse why we got to this situation. Let's just figure out what do we want instead and focus on programming that.
Yeah. It sounds fascinating. So have you got any plans for any other kind of intense therapies?
Stay tuned. I don't know. We'll see what comes up. Because like I said, I wasn't looking for the combo. I had never heard of it. It came to me. I had 2 other things going on that day, one of which I had kind of signed up for, and I ended up canceling this other thing that I had that was also really important to me because I felt like this was an experience I need to have. And I needed to do it that day with those people in that moment. And I'm really glad that I did because it was just an absolute lovely group of people. So yeah, I will be doing it again. I think in June. We shall see.
Maybe we can do a follow. Maybe we can do a... Do you think you could get someone to just switch the voice recorder on your phone on and you could do like a video diary throughout the day or like an audio diary throughout the day? That probably wouldn't be appropriate, would it? No.
I don't think anyone would want to hear me.
Oh, we don't have to share that bit. And I guess if the rest is you sleeping, maybe wouldn't be the most interesting episode to listen to.
No, it wouldn't. And it's so funny. When I walked into the room, I was like, where should I sit? Where should I sit? 2 of the buckets were green and one of the green buckets had already been taken. And I was like, I want a green bucket because if I'm going to be feeling sick, I want to be sick into my favorite color. It was like I was even looking for that level of comfort. Like, I don't want a blue bucket. I want a green bucket because green is my color. I was like trying to hold on to any kind of like anything I could do to make the experience a little bit easier.
Yeah.
How your brain works.
Yes.
The green.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I can't imagine just going into a room and go, okay, where do I sit and puke now? Where would be a good place to sit and hurl my guts up?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So I'm also wondering about how we kind of safely and responsibly share the information about this. So I think it's important to stress again, you've already said it. I know everyone listening here is an adult, but please don't try this at home. Don't order, but don't look into this and think, oh, I'll DIY it in the shed or something like that. You know, one of the things that has struck me so profoundly about your experience, Holly, was the fact that you said the thing that made it for you was the fact that you were so exquisitely held, you felt so safe, you felt so supported. It was such a lovely group of people. And I think it's really essential that if you are curious or intrigued or thinking, I want to go and experience that level of intensity and healing, that you go and you find experienced people. Is there a qualification in this? I was going to say, is there a certificate?
I don't know. There is like an International Kambo Association. I'll link to this in the show notes so everyone can link. But definitely like go online, find someone who resonates with you and that you trust. Get a recommendation from someone. I'll share the guy who did my ceremony in the show notes as well, based in London. Find someone that you know, like, and trust, or get recommendations from other people. Be safe. Like, this is really intense healing. And it's also, I mean, first of all, you're drinking a ton of water in a very short period of time, which can be dangerous if not done properly. So just drinking the water is dangerous. Of course, but you're bringing it back up again quite soon. So you don't start drinking the water until about 10 minutes before they're going to put the dots on, because you need to drink it and then bring it straight back up.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can have too much water in your system. But every part of this was very, very precisely managed by someone who had used this many, many times with himself and many times with other people. So he had experience of knowing how it was going to affect other people. And even before I signed up for this thing, I had to fill out this like 4-page medical thing with what medications am I taking, like what health stuff do I have. You know, I have asthma, so I took out my inhaler, put it next to me, didn't need it, but had it there visible where they could get it to me. Like, they were very, very careful about how this was going to affect my system in other ways based on my particular body. So they were very, very, very careful. And I feel like they were very, very responsible.
I think that is absolutely essential. And yeah, we will link to the place where Holly went, but please do your due diligence if you're not in the UK.
Yeah.
Research this. This is like DIY dentistry. Just don't, okay? Just don't. There was a book, there was quite an infamous book. I don't know if you can still go on Amazon. It was called DIY Dentistry, which to me just seemed the most ridiculous thing. This has been fascinating, Holly. I have never heard of this particular type of ceremony, and to hear your experience of it has been really enlightening. It's not something I'm going to plan on doing personally, because it's not something that I feel is calling to me. But
yeah. And that's the thing. Go with what calls to you, and don't go with what doesn't call to you. Like, use your gut on this. Everyone who's listening to this, use your gut. If it resonates, research it. If it totally does not resonate, then find something else. And that same goes with any kind of healing, whether it's the super intense kind of healing or the super gentle kind of healing.
Thank you so much. This has been really interesting and juicy and really good fun, and I've learnt lots. And yeah, it's a really interesting question, this idea of, is there no pain, no gain? Is there value in having intense, not always kind of just flower crowns and butterfly kind of healing experiences? And I think we're in agreement that yes, there definitely can be, in the right circumstances, and it with the right kind of supervision. So thank you. This has been really interesting, Holly. Thank you.
I'm glad we just jumped right into it.
Yeah, me too.
We always kind of come up with like bullet points, and we have like an idea of where the conversation is going to go. I'm really glad we just decided to wing it on this, because I think it flowed really well, and I liked not having the structure. And I think that was very important for this particular topic, because you never know what's going to happen in this type of therapy.
Exactly. Yeah. So thank you for listening. If you have questions, as usual, drop me a line, Joe@Joe Casey. And is it still Holly at Holly Wharton? I'm never sure.
It is. Holly at hollywharton.com.
Yeah. And you can always hop into my Facebook group, the Coaches and Healers Collective, on Facebook, and leave any comments, or find us on the Instagrams and things like that. Do you have a publication date for your book yet, Holly?
Yes, it will be available early April, but the official launch date is April 23rd, which is Earth Day.
I can't wait. Yeah, so we'll be shouting about that when it happens as well, no doubt. Thank you all so much for listening.
That's all for now. I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it interesting and useful. Please drop me a line and let me know what you thought. You can email me at holly@hollywharton.com, or find me online and get in touch. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and are not yet subscribed, I would love to have you as a subscriber. That way you can get the episodes as they are published every Monday. So thank you again for listening. And remember to visit hollywharton.com/294 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you. Thanks so much for listening to Into the Woods with Holly Wharton. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for topics that were discussed, at hollywharton.com. That's HOLLYWORTON.com. If you'd like to connect with other listeners and get support on your journey, I would love for you to join my private community on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Holly Wharton. That's patreon.com/Holly Wharton. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next week.